Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about magic arms. So I'm Daniel Norton, photographer in New York. I make videos like this about gear, about philosophy, about technique. So if that kind of stuff interests you, go ahead and subscribe. Let's get to it. Okay, so what makes a magic arm magic, in this case, is that it's a little different, right? There's lots of articulating arms out there that at each joint structure, it has its own knob and you turn and adjust it. And those can be great for some things. They're just slower, maybe a little more clumsy to use. What makes the magic arm, or in this case it's a Noga, special is that when you loosen this one knob here in the center, right, the whole thing becomes loose. Not just the middle joint, but also these top parts here that we can move around in any direction. That means that when we have this thing mounted up, we just have one point to release. We can kind of freely move around where we want, lock down our light or our camera, and it's just much faster and easier to work with. These I love to use for cameras and for installations that aren't going to be permanent, like when I'm just going to go in there and use it. Like, let's say I wanted to mount on a ladder. So in my super clamp video, I kind of showed you how to put a tripod head in a ladder, and before I did that, I showed you that this thing exists, right? This is a camera bracket that's made for a magic arm. So one really common way to hang your camera with this is to use a super clamp. In fact, Manfrotto has sets that are super clamps, magic arms, and the camera platform. It's literally made for that, right? So remember, the super clamp is a hex at the bottom. The magic arm is not a hex, okay? But it has a flat area here on the pole, so you want to put that towards the pin. Tighten that down, and now it's not going anywhere. Again, we got a camera, we want security. I am going to mount on the ladder like we did before, so I'm going to use the wedge. That's going to allow me to mount on to flat things. Again, check out the super clamp video if you haven't seen that. And on this end, we're going to put our camera. Now, I'm going to put the camera on here first because I find that's easier. Okay, so with the clamp on here securely, I'm going to pull this down. I've got it all loose right now. I'm going to clamp this right here to the step, give myself some nice security. And now again, I've got my arm. I'm going to tighten it for a second so I can get my camera on there easily. So again, I have my camera on the camera platform, easy enough. Drop it in here. And again, I'm going to try to put the flat area towards the nut that I have here, so that way it won't move. You know, that's what we want ultimately. Now, these can hold, this one in particular, they all have different weight listings, so make sure you look in that. This one holds 10 pounds, so I'm more than fine with this, right? And I can now loosen this, and when I do, I'm trying to drop the camera, right? The more I loosen it, the easier it moves, right? And I can actually come in and move this however I need to get it in the position that I want, you know, whatever it might be. Some strange position I might want to get in, like, I don't know, like this, right? And once I'm there, I just tighten it down. And it's not going anywhere, right? Great for remote cameras because now that it's in the position, I can put it wherever I want. Also, I found that it's really useful if I have a camera that I need to mount to something like a ladder and I just want to be really flexible with it, right? Because I can actually make this like somewhat tight so it's harder to move. And that just kind of, it's not a turn, you know, if I let go of it, it'll fall. But it gives me like a little bit of security, almost like kind of a monopod would in a sense, because you've got a little bit of security and it allows me to move around a lot. So even if you just want to add a little bit of security without locking it down, I find these to be really good for that. Well, once you have it in place, it's basically there. It's not going to move until you either take the clamp down or loosen this or whatever. Totally easy, great for a camera, one of the major uses. But you can also use this to mount lights, and let me talk about that now. Okay, so just like how I mounted, the camera to the ladder, I moved the position slightly, but I have the magic arm here and I'd put a light on it because my light I'm going to want to put higher, right? You see here that this is 5/8, of course. You could do any number of things. You could put like an umbrella adapter on here or the light to mount your light on there. I'm going to use a softbox. So with my Shimera softbox, I actually have, it has this like 3/8 male. And you see it's 3/8 female here. And what I'm going to do essentially is screw this thing on there. So let me show you how that works. So basically, this box goes together pretty simply. This little piece here screws in the bottom. Then it's going to leave me with, again, that brass stud that I can then just screw into this. So super simple. Probably might even be easier to do it before you put the box on there. But you know, I was able to pull that off, not too bad. All right, so that's on there now, right? And I can basically adjust it wherever I want. And what I'm going to do here is I can mount to it. You know, this is a Speedlight Mount, so I'm going to mount to it. I'll put it flat so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to mount to it my Speedlight. There we go, easy as that. Make sure it's nice and tight. And then once that's nice and tight, I can spin it around and put it wherever I like, right? And I basically got my light, you know, positioned. If I was going to make a portrait, let's say of you, right? You're looking at me. Hey there. All right, I can put it right here and I'm able to light you up. And the light's right above me. I can move it as needed, however I want to. Move it around for you guys. You know, easy enough to do like that. So super simple. You know, you can easily put it on something like this. So like I said, if you're somewhere and you want to make a portrait, there's like a ladder or something, or even a pipe on the wall, whatever, you can use that super clamp, which again, I did a whole video on super clamps to use it. But what if you want to put it like, let's say on a light stand and you want to boom it out, right? You've probably seen Seth do that. Hey, Seth. Seth's going to be like, you stole my arm. Like he's the first person to ever use one of these arms before. Maybe he is, who knows? We can definitely mount it onto a light stand as well to give us some extension. So let's look at that. Okay, so let's say you're traveling and you don't want to carry C-stands, or you don't have C-stands, or you're renting a studio, or you're borrowing a studio, it doesn't have C-stands as regular stands. It kind of depends on the stand. This one happens to have a 3/8 screw, and some of them have quarter screw. So I mean, in theory, I could just, you know, screw this directly. This is why you got to keep in mind in photography, there's these standards, right? So 3/8/16 is a standard, as is 1/4 20. So if I'm using this stand, right, I can just go like that. Now I will say that like, that's not a whole heck of a lot of thread to be in here. So I wouldn't fully extend my arm out and put 10 pounds on it, because I'd be a little weary that that brass might go on me. So be a little wary if you're going to do this, and don't go crazy with extension if you only put that much thread in there. But let's say that I didn't have that. Let's say it was flat on top, right? And I couldn't do that. Well, there's a few different things that you could do. I happen to, normally when I have my Chimera box, I have the reverse of this one, right? That has the female parts that I use as well. So you could adapt it, right? And then I'd be able to attach it that way. Or what I think is actually better are these. So this is basically an adapter. I believe this one's a Manfrotto. It is from 5/8, so regular stand. This one's to 1/4. I'd probably pick up 1 to 3/8 if you can. This is just the one I have sitting here at the studio, so it's easy for me to grab. Because again, fatter is going to be better. But let's say we're going to use this one. If I take this guy, now look at how much longer that is, right? Again, the longer you put it in there, the better it's going to be, right? It's going to give you more surface area. More surface area is going to be less likely to break. So we're tightening it on there, and you might notice that I left the nut in there, this little nut right here. The reason I did that is because I actually, before I did it here for the video, I looked at it, and it didn't quite make it down all the way, and I didn't want to leave that gap, because that gap, again, is going to, the flatter this is, the less likely it's going to have tension, the less likely it's going to break. But now, with this, I can go on any stand, right? And I'm definitely in a much, much better position, weight-wise, you know, and I can totally take my arm, and just like I did with anything else, I can take my arm, and I can move it around and do whatever I want to do. It gives me the ability to kind of boom out, you know, a bit if I want, like that. I'll make it lower so you guys can see it. Obviously, I'd boom it with my head if I was doing it for a shoot, but I'll just show you. You know, I can boom it up and out, and yeah, however I want, you know, and I can create the angle that I need to get the light exactly where I want it. And this thing is smaller than, you know, an arm. And actually, an arm and knuckle from a C-stand you could also carry with you, but, you know, for the size, this is a winner, you know, and you can also manipulate it a lot better, I think, than that. Yes, this is a little more expensive, you know, not a lot more, but a little bit more. So, I mean, if you look at the size of this thing, it's very, very small, you know, when it comes down to it. I believe this one is 22 inches total, so it's like 11 and 11. So that's going to fit pretty easily into a case. You carry with you a few different little adapters, and you're able to take your camera and or light and mount them to tons of different situations. Whether you mount them to, you know, with the help of like a super clamp or some other clamp, you can mount it to all kinds of those kind of things. You can mount it to light stands. I mean, because it's threaded, in theory, you can mount it to your tripod. So if you wanted to like boom out over something a little bit with the tripod, you could use this as a middle step. So super useful. These are a little bit more expensive. This one, I believe, it was on sale. It's a Noga magic arm. This one was Well, it said list price $190, but it was $100 at Adorama. So I think that's the regular price, to be honest with you, because they had that's just Adorama's deal. So these are pretty darn good for $100. Manfrotto makes them as well. I think they're a tiny bit less expensive, or maybe more expensive. Who knows? Matthews makes an amazing one. I'll put a bunch of links down there depending on what you want. Now, Tether's Tools also makes one. What I'll say with these is buy the best one you can afford, because you're hanging your expensive piece of equipment off this, and there's lots of fail points. So if you're going to invest in an arm, try to get the best quality one. If it's like $30, it's probably, get some insurance or something, because I don't think I'd buy a $30 magic arm. I don't even know if they exist, but definitely get the best one you can afford with this. It's more of a specialized piece of equipment, but it is something that's really good to have. And yeah, it'll serve you well if you get a nice one. So let me know what you guys think about these. Do you guys use magic arms? Do you use arms at all? And what do you use them for? Do you put cameras on them, which I think is probably the most common thing? Or maybe you put lights on them, who knows? Have you seen Seth use these? Because if you haven't, watch his videos now. He uses these all the time. He is the master of these arms. He's got like a dozen of them. He probably has as many of these as I have super clamps. It's like his baby. He does it all the time, and he does amazing stuff with them. So they're super useful to have. So make sure you check that out. I'll see if I can find a link where one of his videos, you can find them. It'll be easy enough. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. Leave a comment to let me know what other kind of grip you guys want to see. Ring the bell if you want to see all the stuff as it pops up. And I'll see you next time.